2013, really the full year, 2013 to 2014. Okay, I'm ready to buy, and you're saying I can't. In early 13, I had learned and seen enough to know that Bitcoin was for me. I wanted it. Coincidentally, at this time, my wife and I received a unexpected $5,000 gift from family, and we didn't know what to do with it. My wife and I just happened to be savers. Thank God we both are like that. We both like to give money, save money, invest money, and then spend money, mostly in that order. So I know we're kind of different in that respect, but we're both like that. To me, it made perfect sense to pretend like we never even got the money, do something with it, an investment or save it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a perfect chance. Let's throw it all into Bitcoin. It's happening right now. This is a golden opportunity. And I told my wife about it. I said, look, I was ready to I was ready to really pitch her hard on this. I'd been in sales. I was gonna, have all my arguments, and she kind of not gave in easily, but she had seen me talk about Bitcoin. She knew the opportunity. She had even seen it go up a little bit. She knew how long I had spent, so she gave me the green light. So we spent all $5,000 of that money to get into Bitcoin. Unfortunately, while I got the green light from my wife, I still had a huge problem. You couldn't buy Bitcoin. You literally couldn't buy Bitcoin anywhere. Coinbase just started up in 2012, but it wasn't available in Pennsylvania, where I live now at this time. It had to get all these regulations or money transmitter licenses, and it hadn't yet. So what was I going to do? I didn't mine it. Mining had gotten, I'll say that in a second, but the exchanges, there weren't other exchanges like Coinbase out there right at that point. And so I watched the price go up. I saw it go up from like $1 in 2011 to spike to nearly $30 at the beginning of that year, 2013. And I had $5,000 burning a hole in my pocket, and I couldn't get in. Can you imagine what that felt like? The price just kept going up past $30, and I was frantically trying to find a way to get in. There was something else called Localbitcoins.com, which is kind of like Craigslist. You can buy and sell Bitcoin and be matched with a local seller, and then you meet them and exchange cash for Bitcoin. But the thought of meeting some stranger in a Wendy's beside a highway with $5,000 cash made me feel uneasy. Go figure.
And you couldn't really mine it anymore because the mining equipment had advanced so fast between 2011 and 2013 because the demand was increasing. It was still a fringe thing and a niche thing, if you want to call it that. But the mining equipment got so advanced, from CPUs to graphics cards to now these new ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits, that it didn't assure that mining was a good investment anymore, at least at that time. So they were thinking, the prevailing thinking at that time was just buy it directly, just buy Bitcoin and hold it. But that still had a problem. Where was I going to buy it? Finally, I found a company by the name of BitInstant that would sell me the Bitcoin that I wanted. It was started by a man by the name of Charlie Shrem and his friend, and it had investors by the name of Roger Ver and the Winklevoss twins, if you remember them from the Facebook movie. Now, using it was tricky. You couldn't just buy it online. It was not really online. There was still so little regulation out there, and the laws surrounding it were unfinalized or murky, that it made investing in it almost impossible unless you were mining it. But mining was basically out. But BitInstant found a loophole. You would send a MoneyGram to BitInstant, which is a remittance. It's just transferring money. And once they received your money, they send you Bitcoin to the Bitcoin address that you provided. None of this was done online, though. You had to do it in person. So you actually had to find a MoneyGram vendor. Maybe you've used it before, but I hadn't before that time. And you had to pray that the cashier, the person behind the desk, knew what they were doing and they were comfortable with it. So in this case, BitInstant was a bill collector, and you were the bill payer. You were paying the bill. I'll never forget the first time I went to buy Bitcoin. It was a Wednesday night. I had Bible study, me and my wife, at a local friend's house from our church. And I was heading over there. It was just me in the car. And I figured out that there was a MoneyGram vendor at a local gas station right next to their house. And so I pulled up. Now, it wasn't in a bad part of town, but it wasn't in a great part of town. It was just kind of like, in between, not super, super safe. So I pulled up and I had $5,000 cash in my pocket. I didn't know what to expect. So I had brought it all. I didn't know if it was going to be one purchase or what was going to happen. And I went in and just me and the cashier, nobody else was in there, thank God. I was already kind of freaked out, a little bit panicked. And he had no idea what he was doing, just like me. He'd never done a MoneyGram order, or if, no, I don't think he'd ever even done it. And then he told me that the MoneyGram machine wasn't working, or rather the transmitting or whatever, the network. So I was actually really happy to get out of there. And so I took off and I went to Bible study that night. But after another day of looking up MoneyGram vendors, I found that there was one close by. It was at a Walmart. And I thought, Walmart, why not buy Bitcoin at Walmart? I was like, there's cameras around, there's people there. I shop at Walmart. You know, what's the big deal? So I show up to Walmart with $5,000 cash and I fill out one of these MoneyGrams. Their machine was working. They knew what they were doing. And I had to put like in the memo my Bitcoin address, which is like this 25 to 50 digit number. Now, there was a catch, and that was, I think, because of regulations or certain laws or lack thereof, there was a cap of how much you could order per day. So the max was $500, which I had, of course. So I gave him $500 cash, and there was a $3.95 fee that came along with it. So I gave $503.95, and I put in my memo my Bitcoin address. And I'll never forget driving home, and my computer was open, my laptop, and I had the Bitcoin QT software application loaded. And I think it was even there. And what showed up was 3.415 Bitcoin. So almost 3.5 Bitcoin I got for that $500. And I felt incredible. I felt like, I don't know, I felt like on top of the world. I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I had a good idea why I was doing it, but I finally got into Bitcoin and I got 3.5 of them. And then, of course, what was next? I wanted to do it again, but I had to wait for the next day. And so that was on April 3rd, 2013. And so my average buy-in for each Bitcoin was about $150 per Bitcoin. So I didn't get it at the $10 or $30 mark, which I really wanted to in early 13. $150 would have to do. So I kept doing it for the next 10 days until all $5,000 was spent. And that $5,000 investment got me 34.25 Bitcoin, which was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Now, what was next was just a time of waiting and watching. My wife and I agreed to wait and hold it for 5 years before doing anything. And the previous high was back in August 2012 when Bitcoin hit $16. By early 13, it shot way past that because it took me a month to buy Bitcoin. It had gone past 30 or 16, 30, and now it was about, I think, $266 was the next new high. And then it crashed all the way back to $60 in July. And so, again, come hell or high water, my goal was just to hold Bitcoin, regardless of what I was doing, especially in 13, which was a wild year. She agreed. My wife said, let's just hold it. But by the end of 2013, there was another new high. It had gone way past $266 and it went to almost $1,200. So I was like freaking out. My wife was freaking out. We were so excited. So I turned my original $5,000 investment of 34.25 Bitcoin into an investment worth $41,000, which was a massive 800% increase in less than a year. I was on top of the world. I was riding high, and people were starting to pay attention to Bitcoin, I would say, by this point. $1,200 was a lot. So this is a good point to just pause and stop for a second just to tell you that this will probably happen. You might buy Bitcoin, you might find a way to mine it, and it'll spike. And you kind of freak out. You're super excited. Your blood is pumping. You've never seen something like this. Even if you've been in the stock market and you're maybe a seasoned or successful investor, the type of gains that you're potentially getting with Bitcoin they're astronomical. They defy reason and logic, which is one of the reasons that so many famous investors like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and others say it's worthless because they can't comprehend it. They don't understand its value proposition, what it is, and they definitely can't see that as even realistic or possible or sustainable. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But this will happen to you because Bitcoin is volatile. It'll do these high swings up and then these crashes down. And you're going to be left with a tough decision. what do you do? So what will you do? What would you have done in my position? You buy it at about $150 per coin. I have 34 of them. By the end of the year, it's worth $1,200 per coin. So I've made about, well, it's worth over $40,000. What would you have done? I can't tell you, what that perfect right answer is, because it's different for every person. Now, of course, if you were to look in the future and say, well, hey, it's $50,000, $60,000 here in 2021, that's 8 years in the future. You can't possibly know if that's going to happen, or even if so, when that's going to happen. I thought we would already been this high a couple years ago, but we're not. So anyway, you're going to have to make these decisions for yourself. You're going to have to think about these decisions. And later in my section, Investing in Bitcoin, I kind of go over what I call a Bitcoin investing goal sheet. And I kind of walk through the thinking process that I went through during this time and in the future, that I would encourage you to check out, because it served me well, me and my wife well. And it's based on investing advice, my experience, and what they say in the industry, best practices. So just remember, when you see Bitcoin start to go up, you never think it's going to stop. You might be saying, well, no, that's not true. I know it's going to stop. You don't understand. When you buy Bitcoin, okay, and you see it like double in price, you freak out, you're excited, but then you see it double again, and then you see it double again. It's just, I'm all chills just talking about it. It's crazy. It is literally crazy, okay? So I just want to prepare you for that, because that happens. And the increases and the relative amount go up too. Just the other day, it dropped like $15,000, $20,000 from $64,000 to about, I think, $38,000. What is that, $26,000 swing in just a couple days? That's insane. Okay, so having said that, you want to think about these things ahead of time. What are you going to do? Are you going to hold? Are you going to sell some? Conventional wisdom with investing is maybe taking some profits. That's called taking profits. I didn't do that. My wife and I stuck with our goal of holding it for 5 years. So let's get back to the story. There was another really good article by that time, around June, I think, in 2013, by Rick Falkvinge, who talked about his estimates for what he thought Bitcoin might do. And this was really something. It was June 28th, 2013, and the name of the article was, "The target for Bitcoin is not some $50 or $100. It's $100,000 to $1 million." I remember reading that and thinking, wow, I wanted to believe it. Of course, you want to believe that. And I was like, wow, he makes a lot of sense, because what he was saying is that if it only captured Bitcoin, only captured 10% of the global transactional currency market, that it could be worth that, anywhere from between $100,000 to $100,000 to $1 million. But I tucked that away in my brain as a possibility, and that's something that fueled me, because I knew that it was only going to go up. It was only a matter of time, or at least I hope so. So that was the year of 2013. So 2013 all the way up to 2014. This next section is 2014 to 2016. And I'll just tell you, it wasn't the same as 2013. It was very different. So here we go. Let's look into that.